Hey guys, it's Mike again. Um, it's been a while since I recorded a video, so I thought it'd be a good time to do that. I think the last time I was recording, I was somewhere around 1490, 1500, something like that. Since then, I was able to get my score up to about 1600 by changing the time control that I was using. I changed it to 10-minute time control instead of 15 and 10. But as I've thought about it, I kind of wanted to go back to 15 and 10. And so I've been on a little bit of a roller coaster between, as far as my rating goes, it's been all the way up to 1600 or so, and then back down to where it is now, just under 1560. Okay, so what's happening here? We've got a Philidor, and I'll tell you, this is one of those openings that you really want to try and punish in whatever way possible. And I think just fast development is where it's at here for the most part. H3 protects against the knight or the bishop coming down here for a pin. Okay, probably. I mean, I'm looking at possibly opening up the board. But I also want to just castle. I think I'll go ahead and just castle. Castling quickly is one of those things I've been trying to do a lot lately. So regarding the 10-minute versus 15 plus 10, etc., I've tried a bunch of different time controls. And I do think that I was performing best at either the 10, the flat 10, or the 10 plus 5. But that was primarily because my opponents didn't have as much time to think, and I was tending to sort of make relatively quick decisions. And I thought, well, that's kind of superficial if I'm winning because I'm just a bit quicker than my opponent. I ought to be able to give my opponent plenty of time to actually think through their moves. Kind of like in daily games, for example, where time is not that much of an issue. It's just, what are you able to come up with? And so that's what I'm trying to do. So I think that ultimately I sometimes need to learn to slow down. And one of the questions that I've been telling myself just today, as a matter of fact, because the question is always, how do I get better? And you can do exercises, tactics, puzzles, study various openings, studying end games, middle games. There's so many different ways to do it. And I feel like I've learned so much in terms of strategy. But at the end of the day, if you don't put that strategy that you learned into practice, because your decisions are too quick, then it's not going to help you a whole lot. So that's one of the things that I believe that I've identified is that I need to just slow down. And the question that I'm trying to ask myself as an experimental question at the moment, first of all, if time isn't much of an issue in any given position, then I want to ask myself, have I sufficiently considered all of my options and my opponent's options? Do I have an idea of what my opponent is trying to accomplish? And ideally, you would play in such a way to where there would really be no surprises. In other words, every now and then I notice that I'm surprised by one of my opponent's moves. But I think that that kind of just points to the fact that maybe I hadn't considered all of their options. So I kind of see that as a red flag. If you're getting surprised a lot by what your opponent does in response to what you do, I think that is a good indicator that you're not really considering all of your opponent's resources. Now, I don't mean to say that you won't be surprised occasionally, like they'll make some strange move or something you hadn't really considered. But if you're surprised in the sense that that the move that they're making is somehow more challenging than what the resources were that you thought that they had, then that's a good indication that maybe you're not considering everything. So in this particular situation, he's certainly threatening coming down here, but the popular threat is when you've got when the bishop is pinning this knight against the queen, and then this knight is able to jump in here. That's the scenario that ultimately has to be avoided. But my h3 pawn is preventing that combination from happening, so I'm good there. So it looks like he's setting up to get a tempo on this bishop, and I think it's just best that I go ahead and I played a3 to prevent the knight from coming to b4, as well as to give myself a place to hide, so to speak. So this one's interesting. I don't think I'd need to do anything. I mean, the threat is coming down there or taking here, but there's no pin, and so there's no real threat immediately. If I were to take, and then he takes back, then I'm going to have to move this knight somewhere, which makes this pawn on e4 vulnerable. So that's why I'm just going to play rook e1. So that when this knight has to move, that guy's still protected. I suppose I could have played d3. Be another option. Might have even been a better option. But at some point, I want to get that rook there. And especially with this bishop that's trapped in, he's not on the diagonal coming here. So I think that's a relatively harmless move. Now, moving back here, it looks like he wants to come in there. And so I guess the question is, do I want to weaken my king side by going g3? Or do I just want to go ahead and move here? Now, I believe that I'm going to want to do this. Now, there's another option, which is taking with this bishop, but I really don't want to give up this bishop for that knight. And I don't think I want to go here because he's got, well, let's consider this. If he's got 1, 2 attackers on it, but I also have 1, 2 defenders. So if he takes here, I take back. He takes here, then I can take him back. I think that's all fine and dandy, as a matter of fact. So I think I'm going to want to take the center and potentially open it up if he takes. And that's going to get my e-pawn rolling a little bit forward, at least potentially, with the rook behind it. Oops. Now, if he were to take this pawn, I'd just take back with the knight. So I don't think that's happening. Oops. Sometimes I get in this mode where I can't clear the arrows for some reason. Not sure why that happens. Now, there is a bit of a threat here. I mean, I can take there, and if he takes back with the bishop, then I've got my bishop on this diagonal. Okay, so he takes. So this is pretty straightforward. I'm taking back. Okay, that's a pretty common thing. The question is, how do I respond? I generally don't. I mean, I generally want to hang on to this bishop as much as possible. Comes in extremely handy. So one option is to bring it down to b1 and eventually open up on this diagonal here. Or I could just take, and that's going to open up the F. It takes back, it'll open up the F file and give him a strong center. I don't really want that. So what I'm considering is going here. And I think what I might get is something like that in response to try to kick. Then I'll just take here, and then maybe I've got the option to drop my bishop back after that. So I really want to hang on to that bishop, so I'm going here. Plus, if he does take my knight on d5, then I'll take back with the pawn, and then he's going to have to clear out. Now that closes this diagonal, but I've always got the ability to drop back and open up this diagonal. Or I can, I don't know, at some point possibly bring the bishop forward and get it back this way. I mean, there's many different possibilities here and then here once that pawn is moved. Alright, so that's interesting. He is moved back to d7. Most likely he wants to come here to threaten my queen, but doesn't do a whole lot. I think what I'm going to do is go there. What that does is ensures that once I move my knight, say I have to bail out by taking here. If he were to try and kick my knight, for example, it closes off the diagonal to my bishop. Plus, it begins opening up this diagonal here. Yeah, okay, so I kind of expected that. We'll just take. Now, he cannot take here, though. Okay, so it's a standoff with the queens. If I were to take, that doesn't open up his king because he can just take back there. So I don't really like that. One possibility is pushing forward here. Now, if he were then take with this pawn, I wouldn't be able to take the knight because it's covered by this bishop. I think probably dropping back is not a bad option, but the question is where to drop back to. I mean, I could also take, but another thing is I could move my bishop here, and if he takes, And then essentially, I get my 2 bishops there, and then I've got the advantage of the 2 bishop pair, etc. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So if he wants to swap queens, let him swap queens. I'll just take back with my bishop here. And that way I'll have 2 bishops, this one eventually coming down here up on this diagonal, and then I'll have another bishop on this diagonal. And although I wouldn't have a queen left, neither does he. But I've got his bishop pair. He's only got the light squared bishop left. So I think that would constitute an advantage. Okay, so what he's doing, he's double attacking this pawn. And I've been wanting to make this move for a while anyway. So we're just going to reinforce that with b3. And again, it does close off this. I can't draw his diagonals. Closes off this diagonal, but that's fine. I've actually been wanting to come down here to open up this diagonal. Now, so this is a big thing. I mean, you got to recognize the threats of your opponent. So he's got this pin on my king. And the question is, which pieces can exploit that? Well, that piece right there. And so the question is what to do about it. He's also attacking this pawn, but it's well covered, so I don't see any issues there. For the most part, I think probably just moving the king to the side is the way to go. The other threat, even probably more serious than this bishop coming down here, is if my king were to stay on g1, if nothing effectively changed over here, I could bring his knight down here, fork my king and queen, and I can do absolutely nothing about it. So that would be a serious problem. So question is, do I move here? Do I move here? And I think, because he's got a preponderance of pieces over on the king side, I'm hesitant about getting caught in the corner. So I believe I'm going to come here to f1 instead, because that way it'll give me an escape if necessary. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does. So one of the things before bringing my bishop down here is I'd like to get my rook over here, because if I put my bishop there, that's going to block in my rook. So all else being equal, if I'm able to bring my rook over, that's probably what I want to do next. Okay, so he's creating something here, which is interesting. I mean, looks like he wants to gain this diagonal. And now this diagonal has become vulnerable again. So it seems that that could potentially renew some threats. You know, what I like is, let's say that bishop comes, let's say that I take here. Let's say that the rook goes there, and then my bishop can go here. So we're going to give that a shot. Just go ahead and take, because that's opening up no matter what. No matter what happens. Okay, so the bishop is what it takes. Now, I've got a check here, but it's kind of inconsequential. I can come over here. I think... I mean, he's got a couple of threats, but I believe that this is probably the best place for me to be. I mean, he's opening some pretty threatening lines to my king. But yeah, I mean, one of my next moves I think is going to be down here. Or the other possibility is I can send these pawns forward, which is going to give me this diagonal on the king. And I'm down to, what, 7 minutes or so. So, some cases I may need to start moving without discussing it too much. I was thinking about doing a 10-minute game to where I was talking through all my moves. I'm not sure how that would go exactly. I'm beginning to like taking advantage of this diagonal, but at least I've got the option one way or the other. I mean, if this bishop clears out for whatever reason, then I can come down here and threaten that queen. Jeez, my arrows. Threaten that queen and also threaten a h7 square. Not sure what he's thinking about. I mean, he's got a potential sacrifice over here, which I take. Then that's going to open up this file. However, I've got pieces in the area to protect, and I've got this potential escape route with the king. So I'm not sure. I mean, I think he's probably thinking a lot because he wants to make a sacrifice. Well, yeah, just as I said. Yep. All right, so if I were to do nothing, I mean, I can't really do nothing here. The only real option that I have is this guy. So it's interesting what he may be considering to do here. All right, so he's got a fork on my queen and rook. However, not sure how much of a problem that actually is. I've got this check that I can give. So that gets my queen and then potentially my rook out of there. And a rook move to e2 would just add another defender against f2 as well. So, now, what I have to keep in mind is that this spot, yeah, so that's mate and one threat right there. And so I'm probably not able to actually move this guy out of the way. I probably just need to get my king over there. Which, that's the move I'm going to make. Now he can grab some material. And then I think I've just got to take back with the rook, eventually opening up this line here. Looks like material's still equal. I mean, he gained some material back, but that was only after sacrificing the bishop on h3. I've got to watch out for my king's safety. here because he's got this line. I am able to block with my queen. Now he probably wants me to, yeah, he wants me to take here, rook up here, opens up the game. But no, I'm not into doing that. I'm not into opening those lines for him. Really kind of like to. Well, not only that, but the queen guards it. So. Primary thing here is I need to ensure that, yeah. I don't want to go there, don't want to go there. So I'm going to come here for the moment. Although maybe coming all the way back might have not have been a bad idea. Because that would give me the ability to come over here. Which I do think at some point I could move this pawn forward. Get this guy over here. But also I want this bishop down on the b1 to g6 diagonal. Alright, so offering some challenges. So let's not going to be too concerned about that. We're just going to challenge the queen. See where it goes. Okay, so I can't come back here. My only option is to come here. And, or, as a matter of fact, I can do this. I kind of like that. Oh, why would I like that? Because he can just take, oh, that was a blunder. Big time. Big time blunder. And now things are looking bad. Very bad. Interestingly enough here, because if he checks me and my queen is gone, and can't have that. Yeah, it's never a good sign when your king's on c4 and the queens are still on the board. Now, considering trying to exchange queens, and what kinds of... I don't want to cover up my escape route for the king. I'm thinking exchange of queens would not be bad for me. Now, I mean, I'm keeping in mind that I've got the bishop on that h7 square. So I doubt he's going to want to exchange queens here, because he wants to continue the attack while my king is vulnerable out here on c4. Okay. Yeah, of course I was correct. So now I think it's just a matter of bringing the king back. And I've got pieces that I can put in the way. And more checks. I mean, ideally, I could run my king back over here to a2. I've got a lot of defending pieces. Material isn't all that much different. He's +1, and so it's pretty equal. And the thing is that his attack, well, he's got an attack. It's not full force, so to speak. So here's a moment at which I think I can force a queen trade. Just like this, because I'm threatening mate. And he probably doesn't want to trade queens, but I'm not sure how much of a choice he has. And he can come here, then I'm just going to come back here, and I've still got plenty of defenders for my bishop. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought he might do. And in this case, I would not go here because of rook d8. But I will go there. Now, I've cut off this battery. But I can always bring the king back down here or something. And then block with the bishop on c2. He's got a check down here. That would just help me. We both have to be very careful here. Oh yeah, he did. So, yeah, I'm just gonna come down here, and then he's not gonna have any more checks. Now, I'll probably take that pawn, which protects from mate. And then I'm wondering what else I would have. Because I think I mean, I've got to guard this guy. Definitely. I think that just going to bring the bishop up there. Guards that pawn, protects my king on the c-file. Keeps this battery open, which he's got to stay married to that, basically. Alright, so this is an interesting one here. Another attacker added. The interesting thing is, though, is if he actually takes, then I've got 2 mate threats. So I'm not sure that I want to even move out of the way. I think best I can do is to bring my king here, because he's got no checks on the dark squares, and that will prevent him from giving me a check on the back rank. So again, I'm taking back. Now we'll see what he does, because if he takes with either piece, I've got mate. So yeah, I mean, that was one of those games where you just have to pay very, very close attention. And sometimes it's just a matter of outlasting your opponent. Okay, I'm going to do an analysis here. Hopefully it won't take all that long. We did quite a bit of the analysis during. Let me pull this over. Looks like my accuracy was 83%. And my opponent's was 48%. Now, and then it went really back and forth as far as who had the advantage. But yeah, I mean, one of those things is sometimes you just have to weather the storm, not lose your cool, so to speak, until things go your way. All right, so let's take a look at this. All book moves. Most of the interesting stuff actually happens towards the end of the game. Now here, this is where he first starts to threaten my bishop on a2, and so it wants me to take. The computer wants me to take, but I'm really happy with the choice that I made, interposing that knight. Ultimately, I mean, and it's not necessarily all that predictable, but ultimately, this bishop, although on a different diagonal, played a critical role in actually mating the black king. Okay, so this is a good point, because it's saying that I blundered here. And so, said the f4 is best. So, since I blundered, that means that, all right, he had a missed win. So let's follow that line. If he takes here, then the recommended move is king f1. Ah, okay. See, this is a good example of things that computers tend to see that people don't. Okay. Well, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I admit I blundered because I didn't see all of that. However, my opponent didn't see it either. Made a much more human move. Okay. And so, again, I wanted to open up this diagonal here towards the king, and it says that I blundered here. Let's see. Oh, it wanted my opponent to move here, threatening mate here. Wow, interesting. Okay. It thinks that's a brilliant move. Okay, whatever. Okay, you can see, if you can see the bar, it says that I've got the lead. It's asking why would I move down here? Well, because I didn't want the queen to come down and give me a check. Now, that was I recognized it at the time, a huge blunder. I should have just moved my king back. Now, one of the things is when you can see that your opponent is an attacking player, it's a good idea to offer queen trades. Because if a queen trade is going to be beneficial for you, very often your opponent's not going to actually take the queen trade. Because you can see it's in their character to want to keep the queen on the board because they want to mate you. So now this is where things really turn around, and the reason why I had the confidence to move the king over was because if he takes, which you can see it's blunder, then I know that I can easily just take back. If he takes back with the rook, then I've got back rank mate on d8. If he takes with the queen, which he does in the game, that I've got mate on h7. So I guess he didn't think through it enough to just figure out that he cannot take that piece. And the computer suggests for him that yeah, he should have just moved his queen back. But in this position, it's basically saying, move over here and let me take your queen. So he was lost. Definitely lost by the time he made this move. It was just all over. Even though he thought it looked good for him. Well, it wasn't. And that was the end of the game. All right, guys, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the contents and maybe learned something new. You guys take care. I'll see you next time.